Hello, well, hopefully this is working, because when I first tried to load up the live stream page it gave me an error, but it seems like people are watching it, so I guess it must be working. Yep, well, obviously I guessed it was, because there was other people joining, so I don't know why YouTube gave me an error, but oh well, it's working now anyway. Yeah, good evening to everybody joining. I'm not going to start saying much until I've got... the stream's been on about a minute or two, and that way I know that people have clicked notification if they saw it. Alright, Mike, yep. It's just the forward sling hook is on the, on like a nail. That's all it is. Yeah, I had a rehearsal today, so I had today booked off work as holiday to do a panto rehearsal, which was obviously 4 hours long this afternoon. So now I'm back from that. I thought I'd do a stream, because I don't normally do one on Sunday, but I thought I'd do one today just because I got more spare time than I would have done if I was working today. NATO filter will fit, a 60mm NATO filter will fit the Serbian M1, yeah. Because they're in NATO, the Serbian masks. Or the Yugoslavian masks are actually in NATO. If it's original German World War II stuff, it's not going to be cheap, full stop. I've answered that quite a few times, so I'm not going to keep repeating myself with questions like that. Oh, I don't have any Italian gas masks, sadly, because I've never seen any on eBay. Yeah, I'm going to do a video tomorrow, obviously, but it won't be live for about another month, where what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there is a way you can fit 40mm filters to the GP5. So there's two ideas I've got. One is to put a rubber stopper in the screw thread. That could work. If that works, that would be a simple way of doing it. If that doesn't, I'm going to try using plumber's tape on the NATO filter. Lee Enfield, definitely. There's actually Lee Enfield up there, but it's out of frame. Well, no, 50mm won't fit because the GP5 is 40mm. As in the Carcano rifle, the Italian World War II bolt-action rifle. Probably not going to bother picking up the Ushanka now because it's only going to be cold for like 1 more month, and I've already got enough headgear for cold weather. Yeah, I'll have a look at that, Mike. Tell you what, if I open your channel on a new tab, I can read it quickly now. Oh, no, I'm getting an internal server error trying to load up your channel, because obviously YouTube is a bit fucked this evening. Let's keep refreshing it a couple of times, and then we'll see if the video loads. Just having to work out which comment's the one from him. It was on the Tron video, did you say, Mike? Alright, it's on both, is it? I'll check the Blades and Bows one because I can't see that comment on your Tron one. Let me look on the other one. I found that comment now, so I'm just reading it. So it's Nick Riley, yeah? Oh, yeah, that's a good comment, yeah. Like I said, it's pretty sad with, yeah, it's pretty sad though, isn't it? But yeah, it's a good, very good comment. What do you mean? Would the Soviet Union not have collapsed if they didn't make gas masks? It would still have collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed because communism as an ideology can't possibly work. Alright, thanks for moderating the chat, Mike. Well, I was busy looking at your thing. Yeah, I'm English. If you're saying that, I'm from Oxford, but I don't think people necessarily all sound like that here. Now, £90 is probably good for a C7, but you can get them cheaper than that if you keep your eyes open. Well, no, because then there'd be even less people in work. The thing is with Soviet and planned economies is they had to keep people working, kind of making stuff, just to keep the state kind of functioning, because everything's like a protectionist, very insular economy. So they had to have people in work making things even if there was no use for them. And eventually, obviously, people got fed up with low wages and everything else, like lack of consumer goods and everything else, and the whole thing toppled. Oh, thank you very much. Well, the answer I guess would be no, but it depends who you're implying that about. Because I think in most Western countries, most of the leaders probably are mentally stable. Well, I'd say just discontinued filters. Well, and masks, any of those. Best German mask. Well, the World War II German masks weren't that great. The East German masks are technically just Soviet masks, so I'd say something like the M2000, their current one. I don't think Trump's mentally unstable, if that's what you're implying, but notice we'd say we're not talking about politics on here. No, it's because of the camera lens, because obviously most of these things it's kind of like a fisheye with like a webcam. I don't know if that's going to be obvious, but the further it gets away from the camera, the more it seems to bend. But no, that's totally flush on the wall. And obviously the webcam is going to be slightly tilted at an angle as well because it's on a pivot. Yeah, no problem. You did like leave a donation, so I'm obviously pleased about that. But I'm just sort of saying, you know, there's a reason why I don't go into politics on here, because it will just make people argue. No, I can sort of flick a Zippo open, but that's not really, I wouldn't say a proper trick. Yeah, I bet it'd be a lot less, Richard. I didn't know they'd advertised £110 Cobras, but yeah, I bet they'd be like £80 or £90. I don't know if I have a go-to joke, so yeah, I'd say £20 for an SHMS with a bag and everything's a good price. £30 plus. World War II civilian British masks aren't worth much at all because they made so many of them. Well, tear gas would certainly be used against civilians in a police sort of action because obviously you can look at plenty of times when governments do use CS gas. Best infantry rifle? Well, probably the Sturmgewehr 44, but that wasn't like mass produced enough to qualify. So out of the main rifles, probably the Garand, but well, I can't play Red Dead Redemption 2, it looks like a good game, but I don't have a PS4 or Xbox One. Well, white phosphorus is in most armies' supplies, so yeah, it would be used, because as I said, they can get away with using it. I only have one Stauhelm and I've done videos on the ones I have. In terms of banned military weapons, it would have to be a state that has them in the first place, because a lot have got rid of their stockpiles officially. I think tear gas would be the most likely thing to be used against people in a sort of civil war scenario, just because they have big stockpiles of it. No, I don't have a Nintendo Switch. No, Red Dead Redemption 2 is not on PC. Not as far as I'm aware. All the British masks, as far as I'm aware, were the same masks for everywhere over the Commonwealth. Like, some nations did, like Australia and things, did slight variants on them. Yeah, horse masks are rare and they're worth more than human gas masks, but I've got no interest in really getting any myself. No, because I haven't had any new helmets really since my last helmet collection video. Yeah, I've done videos on my bayonets before, but that gets asked every stream as well, and then I normally end up getting some out. I'm not going to bother opening the drawer today and fishing through the bayonets and disorganising the drawer. For the person saying, am I feeling better? Yeah, not totally back to normal yet, but better than I was last week, and that was obviously better than the week before. Well, I'd assume it's probably June 1982, if it says 682. Yeah, that's fine, as long as it doesn't damage the sort of string release, I guess, doing that. No, I don't have a K98 bayonet. Well, basically, like I'm saying, I've got in the description stuff that's like very commonly asked questions that I don't want to keep having to answer over and over and over on every video. And like I said, I mostly don't want people to talk about politics on these videos, because then it starts alienating people and starting arguments, so I'm just not going to go into it. The only time I really discuss politics is if it's related to like weapons ban kind of bills, you know, and things like that. But not when it's related to, you know, random, I don't like this politician or I like this politician. Not modern dog gas masks, no, you'd have to get like one of those oxygen tent kind of things for animals. Yeah, Stalker Call of Pripyat's a good game, I streamed it on here before. An M17 would match an M1 helmet. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think a HEPA filter would be good enough in like a scenario. I think what you'd need is to get one of those tents. They look like blow-up tents, and you use air. You either use like a big filter-powered pump with them, or you use like air canisters with them. And what they do is it makes a positive pressure tent, so everything inside the tent is filtered air. that's what basically people do for an entire thing. Or you have to have, like, obviously a sealed basement that's airtight or something, and then have sort of air filters going into it, like how bunkers are done. I tried cooking some burgers tonight, Mike, but it didn't actually go to plan because it ended up being more like loads of loose bits of fried beef where they fell apart in the frying pan. So it was like 2 burgers plus then a load of, you know, like fried mince on the side. It wasn't nasty or anything, it tasted fine, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it, so I might have to buy a proper burger press, I think, at some point. Because they looked like burgers before they went in the frying pan, but yeah, they didn't look like burgers when they came out. Yeah, unless I die of food poisoning in the next day, I think I've done them fine, but they came out the pan looking pretty brown, so it means, you know, they weren't red anymore, so obviously they cooked properly. Yeah, it gets dark here at 4 as well, because we're in the Northern Hemisphere. I'd assume the 1918 bar was produced in bigger numbers, just simply due to the fact it was the US producing it. Well, I know obviously like pork is one of the worst ones in terms of you need to cook it to a really high temperature to get rid of a lot of the stuff in it, but I'd rather not eat any raw meat, to be honest. Which one's the Polish CM1? I've got the Polish CM3, but... yeah, 58 quid's good for a 4-sheeter A4, but personally, if you can get like an FM12 for like 40 quid, I'd rather do that. Just check if, with the A4, if they're claiming it's new, because if they're claiming it's a brand new mask, it's not going to be brand new. Well, if you in theory put soup through a canteen or something like that, or liquidised food, then yes, but no, you can't eat with a gas mask on. I've never looked at Epic Militaria, so I can't tell you. I don't have a PMK3, so again, I can't tell you. Let me Google CM1 gas mask. There's the Polish MC1, if that's the one you mean. But there's a Czech CM3 and there's the Polish MC1. The MC1's okay and the CM3's okay. Yeah, GP5 for €3, what could go wrong? It's an IBM Model M, you know, a proper keyboard. If you don't know what an IBM Model M is, look it up. Despite being like a 30-year-old keyboard, they're still like really sought after, and they go for stupid amounts of money if you're to sell a second-hand one in good condition. Yeah, I mean, GP5s and like that are like the most mass-produced masks in history. There's supposedly over 100 million of the things built, so that should give you some idea of the cost of them when they're openly on the market. Yeah, I don't know how old this one is, but we had this keyboard of the Windows 3.1 we had, and we had that in the early 90s. We had the 3.1 when I was only a couple of years old, and I was born in 93. So, to give you some idea, this keyboard is at least as old as the Windows 3.1 we had. And that's going to be 20 odd years old, so it's going to be like a 20 to 30 year old keyboard. It was really lucky we didn't throw this keyboard away, because I was just sorting out the attic and we were like, oh, there's a load of old computer crap up here that's not worth anything anymore, let's throw it away. So actually this keyboard seems pretty good, I'm not going to throw it away, and it was only afterwards that I realised just how valuable and how liked Model M's are. No idea on the price of things like that, to be honest, on Firearms. Well, the Soviet Union was actually really paranoid that it was going to be attacked all the way through the Cold War. Most of the Soviet stuff was done defensively. So the Soviets really did invest a lot into civil defence and bunkers and sort of things like that. in the result of a massive full-scale nuclear war, there would have been a lot more Soviet survivors than Americans or Brits, just because of the fact that they'd actually, you know, made a lot more civil defence gear and given a lot more civil defence training out. Now, that doesn't mean that your odds were good, but it just means that, you know, they had more bunker space, you know, than a lot of other countries. And they, you know, actually at least took it seriously, whereas Britain basically said, all the top people in government get a bunker space, that's it. If you're a common person, you're dead. Somebody was saying to me, I think was Polish, and I can't remember which user it was, that in Polish military service during the Cold War, they were getting a gas mask replaced every 3 months, not because the masks were going wrong, but because the factories were making so many, because, you know, communism, keeping people working on the state-run job. They had such a huge amount of like OM14 masks or whatever it was that they would literally every 3 months issue you a new mask because they had to keep the supplies moving. Now that's the halberd you can probably see over there, if that's the one you're looking at. But you can obviously only see the pole of it because the actual halberd head is out of frame. If I twist that up slightly, you can see the head just about poked into the shelf there. See the sabre on the left of it as well, and the Enfield on the very left. No, it says in the video description, if you read it, I'm medically unfit to serve, so yeah, I can't, even if I wanted to. But the British Army standards for joining up now, they, I don't know if you know about this, but at one point when they did lots of military cuts, they made the standards really tight to get in, so you had to be, you know, like, essentially really fit, in terms of how far you could run and, you know, all that sort of stuff, to even just get into selection. And then they've had the problem now where they can't get people to join up because they made the requirements so high and they said you can't join if you've got, you know, then they put a huge list of medical illnesses, and some of the things on there were really minor as well. And now they've had the recruitment problem, because, you know, they made the requirements so strict to get in, nobody really wants to join anymore, even if they could. So, yeah. Well, I'm trying not to get too political. I have no problem with people who are policemen in general, and, you know, I think there should be laws that should be followed, but it doesn't mean I agree with a lot of the laws, and in the UK, sadly, it seems lots of the police have their hands tied to do lots of really stupid kind of things rather than tackling real crime. Well, you might get germs from them, I guess, yum yum, but if your life was in danger and you could borrow a mask from somebody, I don't think there'd be any reason not to. Yeah, well, in Britain, they just didn't have the space. If you think how dense Britain's population is, that we're like 60 to 70 million odd people on a small island, it's just impossible anyway to build enough bunkers in Britain, because of the fact as well that if you had, you know, a mass nuclear war, you've got the issue of lots of ground bursts and air bursts with hydrogen bombs. The amount you're going to have left of urban place isn't very high, and the problem is somewhere like London, so many hydrogen bombs would have hit London that you're going to have such a big firestorm that people are going to suffocate to death even if they are protected from the physical blast itself, just because there will be no oxygen because it will all burn up. Yeah, I've been asked about the military reenactment one before, but the problem is there's nothing near me that's, you know, related to it. But as I've said, I'm getting one of my friends to buy a Bokken. I'll have to keep pestering him to get him to do it. So he's going to buy a Bokken like my one, and then what we're going to do is do some sparring videos on YouTube, so you actually see some videos where we're probably getting quite battered and bruised swinging these at each other. We'll probably wear helmets for head protection, maybe something for neck protection, but we're just going to obviously say don't aim for each other's heads, and then it's going to be a lot of thrusting and whatever with the Bokkens, because we both think it'd be quite a good fun thing to do, and we both sort of want to do a contact sport kind of thing, so. Yeah, I wouldn't pay £250 for a C50. I'd pay somewhere in the region of 50 to 100 for them, but I'd basically pay that for any mask. You know, except the ones that are super common, then I wouldn't even pay 50 for them, but Well, it's hard to organise all my stuff in the sense I have too much of it. Like I said, I've got 90 odd gas masks, so they're just crammed anywhere I can find room for them, really. See ya, if you're off. Yeah, I think it should be interesting, but it's just something I want to get into because, like I said, the problem I've had before is when I've looked at sort of stuff, there's nowhere near me at all that even does sparring of any sort. A lot of the HEMA stuff I've looked at is like with really lightweight plastic swords or like foam stuff, which isn't really sparring in my opinion, because you should get a bit of injury out of it. Nothing permanent, obviously, but you know, you should learn to fear getting stabbed or hit by something. And I just think it'd be good fun, you know, let your aggression out by sparring, and as long as you're doing it with a trusted friend, you know, both of you aren't going to actually hit each other so hard that they're actually going to, you know, properly try and kill each other. I don't know, is it a working T-34-85? Because if you could buy a working tank, that'd be worth quite a lot. Yeah, but the problem was with Britain, it used to be like that as well. But then Britain just made the requirements so high because they were cutting, you know, lots of army jobs and Air Force jobs and everything like that. So the armed services were cut so much that they had to make the requirements very high to keep the numbers low. But then it, you know, bit them in the arse because they had the issue of nobody wanted to join anymore. Because if you were in the condition that, you know, you were good enough to join the army, you could probably get a lot of professional sports jobs that would pay you even better. Because, you know, a lot of military careers don't pay very well, unfortunately. And I think that's really bad for servicemen, you know. If you're putting your life on your line for your country, you ought to get a decent wage out of it, but a lot of them don't, you know. Sometimes they'll have their legs blown off and then, you know, they'll be disabled, essentially. They'll come back here, and then the government won't even give them disability benefit because they'll say, huh, you're not really disabled, are you, missing your legs? So, but yeah, saying about Poland, Poland actually has one of the most competent militaries in all of Europe now, supposedly, you know, with amount of soldiers, training levels, equipment, because, you know, Poland actually takes it seriously, but a lot of European countries don't, which is why there was that whole NATO scandal recently where America was saying, and Trump was saying, why should we pay into NATO or, you know, take part in NATO if most NATO members don't actually want to keep up their end of it? Well, that sounds typical, Ramon. If you've got a notification 26 minutes late from YouTube, why does that not surprise me? If it's water and windproof, it should offer NBC protection, yeah, because most NBC suits don't have magic abilities. All they do is just stop liquid from coming through. I didn't see your previous question, so you have to re-ask it. Well, I've noticed I'm on top chat, so I'll change the live chat. I'm bald because I shaved my hair off, obviously. But you can see I've actually not got any bald patches. My hair does grow. It's just, I don't like it when my hair gets too long, so I just shave it all off. It's easier to keep clean, it's more hygienic. If my head gets cold, I can wear a hat. As in, like, favourite animal out of all of them? I really like dogs, but, obviously different breeds of dogs I like more than others, but out of all the animals on the planet, that's a good question. Well, like I said, I get all my Joel, I get all my gas masks pretty much from eBay, so just go on eBay in Sweden and see if you can find any good shipping prices, because I won't be able to see what ships to a reasonable price in Sweden. But I'm assuming if you're in Sweden, you might be able to get the Forshida F2 or the Speedmaster 90, whatever it's called, for a reasonable price. Switzerland's military is very good, but again, it's like Finland. They're independent countries in a sense, where they don't want to take part in sort of, you know, alliances, so they have a very good defensive army. Because when you're not joining in foreign wars and you've only got an army that's designed to defend your country, you can pick a really good camo that works in your country, you can pick equipment that's very good for defending your country, and it doesn't need to work in every different environment you can think of. So yeah, somewhere like Switzerland or Finland just basically have to make stuff that works for their environment, which is why I think modern Finnish camo looks so good, because they've obviously said there's lots of pine forests in Finland, so let's make camo that looks good in pine forest. You know. So yeah, anyway, let me have a think about the animal things. I like tapirs. They're probably not my favourite animal, but I do like tapirs. What do I really like? Elephants. I really like elephants. You know, like African elephants, because they're very intelligent. Saying that, on Friday that rat bite started bleeding again when I knocked it, so I've had plasters on it and it's got a lot smaller now and it's more scabbed over, so probably see there it doesn't look as bad. But yeah, it did bite quite deep because you could see under like the skin from the side angle when it had done it. And I think you'll find the Mosin Nagant was a 20th century rifle, or maybe even very late 19th century, rather than being a 21st century firearm. How did I get a rat bite? Because I volunteer with the Blue Cross, which is an animal charity, and I was cleaning out some rats, and my hand got a bit too close to them, and it was a really nervous one, so it bit me. You have to be properly careful with rat bites, not because they're necessarily infectious, but a rat can physically almost bite your finger off if it wants to, if it gets the angle right. Or, you know, like destroy the tendons in your finger and things like that. Rats are pretty vicious if they want to be. I actually quite like rats as an animal. Not obviously as pest ones, but pet rats are quite interesting because they're very tame and, you know, can learn tricks and things. But if you've got one that's not very friendly, they're not particularly nice animals in my opinion. Yeah, basically, as far as I'm aware, Switzerland does do stuff like that, where, yeah, you're required to own a rifle once you've done military service. And I think they've done it so they're always affordable. So, like, if you want to buy an old bolt-action rifle, it's super cheap. The SIG 510s, you know, like Sturmgewehr 57s, they're a, like, very affordable price, probably like $200 to $300. And then, like, the SIG 550 series are a lot more expensive, but it means that, you know, whatever your budget is, you can pretty much get a rifle. Yeah, rodent bites do really sting because of the shape of their teeth. Well, not really, because, well, potentially I might be able to do one outdoor stream this month if I get enough mobile data, because let me have a look. What's meant to happen on my phone is where there was, like an O2 problem a couple of months ago, they were doing a thing where they were giving everybody 2 gig of free data. But I think today's the cut-off for the current amount of data. So what I'm going to see is, after today, if it says I've got 6 gig of data to use per month, not 4 gig, I will try and do an outdoor stream at some point. But I'd need to find somewhere where I'd get a good 4G signal, and, you know, I'd have to make sure my battery's fully charged. Because I imagine streaming on my phone might drain the battery pretty quickly, as well as data, so, the main reason I don't do outdoor stuff, obviously, is because it's pretty much impossible to do it unless you've got unlimited data. That's a Lee Enfield up there. Short magazine Lee Enfield, #1 Mark III, I think it is. It's like the World War I, early World War II version. Because the later World War II version was simplified, so it was a bit shorter, a bit lighter, had different sights. That's the one that's like the World War I style Lee Enfield. Started collecting gas masks probably around 2010, 2011, I guess, but I didn't have this YouTube channel until 2012. If you have a mask like the SHMS, you can use sniper scopes of the mask, because the optics on the mask are designed to be flat and work with scopes. Yeah, it means light automatic rifle, and I've had people go to me, oh no, why were they dumb? Why did they call it a light automatic rifle? The FAL's like a really clunky heavy gun. Well, compared to some automatic rifles from World War II, you know, things like the Bar or the Bren, which are like light machine guns, automatic rifles, depending on how you look at it, they weighed something like 3 times the weight of a FAL. So a FAL being like 3.5 kilos or whatever it is actually pretty lightweight. Only in terms of helicopters, because I live quite close to a police station and airfield. Often the police helicopters like to hover around people's gardens when I think they're waiting to land. I've got a PPM 88 or a GP9, whichever one you want to call it, on order. You know, the gas mask that's in the Metro games. When that arrives, I will clean it and then I will do a video on it, because I know that's a mask some people have wanted for ages. It's what I've spent my current load of Patreon money on, because people on my Patreon Discord asked me to get one. I was going, oh, I don't know. But then I thought, actually, you know, those are the people paying me, aren't they? So if they want it, I should get it. So I used my Patreon money towards it. You can use binoculars with an S10, because the thing's forward-facing. Polish MP5 they work with, Avon M50 and C50. MM1, basically any mask that's got very front-facing lenses or a flat panoramic lens. If it's got a curved panoramic lens, it won't work. Just finished my coffee. Well, I don't know if any masks have built-in radios, but there's things like with the S10 where you've got the radio microphone that clips to the side of the mask, so it's pretty inbuilt. If it was legal, I would love a SIG 550 and lots of other rifles, but sadly in the UK they are not legal. Well, technically, I suppose, if you had a SIG 550 without the gas system in it, so you had to charge it for every shot, you could have a legal one in the UK on UK gun laws, but because of how UK gun laws work, there's really no point in having a semi-auto or automatic rifle converted to be bolt action. You might as well just get a decent bolt action rifle. What do you mean with Soviets and asbestos? They put in everything because it was cheap and they mined a lot of it. No, I don't have a karambit. I don't know if I really like the look of those, though. I don't know if... Doesn't Riddick have a knife like that in one of the Riddick films or games? But don't personally think I'd have much use for a knife like that, because, like I said, I find knives like this the most practical, just because they're, you know, like folding, locking pocket knives. I've done loads of videos recommending different masks, so watch those and you'll get some ideas for masks I like. The UK has two different kinds of well, there's more than two because it's complicated, but primarily you have a Section 1 and a Section 2 firearms license. Section 2 firearms are shotguns, Section 1 firearms are rifles. So Section 2 is easier to get a shotgun license. Essentially you just need a gun safe for that, and I think a non-violent criminal record, or like no criminal record. So in theory I could apply for a shotgun and pretty much get one guaranteed, but I have no use for it, and I don't see the point in paying for a shotgun license, having the police be able to come around my house whenever they want to look around for a gun I'm not going to use. Section 1 firearms license is much harder to get, and that includes different calibers. As far as I understand the law, if it's 22 long rifle or potentially smaller, you can have it in a semi-automatic configuration, things like Ruger 1022s or whatever. If it's in a bigger caliber than that, it has to be bolt action or like manually charged. So you could have something like the Enfield that's up there, but you'd have to have it, you know, you'd have to have the right license for it, kind of thing. I like the Israeli M15 and the 4A1. When you say a commando knife, do you mean a particular knife, or do you just mean generic military knives? Because I have like a Fairbairn Sykes, which is like a commando special forces dagger for silently killing. And I've got like this one that they call like the Israeli commando knife, but it's just basically a very generic K-bar kind of Bowie knife, or Bowie knife. Yeah, non-military personnel can buy an M50 if they can find one for sale. I mean, the FP45 I like the look of the Liberator just because it's kind of a silly concept pistol, but no full auto guns unless it's like the army or police with them. Well, I've already complained enough about the army on this stream. I'm not going to start getting too political and talking about their current recruitment campaigns that's caused a lot of problems. You won't be able to get the Webley though if it's a Webley pistol, because pistols are totally banned under current UK laws, unless they have like a massive stock on them to like technically make them a carbine, I guess. Well, I said before, like in terms of questions for the audience, if you can think of a good idea for a video, please tell me, and then you will be credited if I do a video on it. I will mention your names when I do the video. I think it would depend on the type of gun, Nicole. I mean, if you're doing a bolt-action rifle or something like that, it's not very hard at all, like an air rifle with a break barrel, because all you're really doing is just charging it with each shot with the hand movement. And then I think the hardest thing with a firearm is not snatching the trigger, you know, like, because you have to gently squeeze the trigger, and I still do that badly sometimes. But generally I can hit pretty small targets in my air rifle, like 20 yards away plus, so it depends. A lot of it is more, you know, the fine control of, you know, keeping steady with it, I guess, but, and it obviously depends on the thing, because obviously a semi-automatic's going to be a bit more complicated than like a bolt action or whatever. A channel I really like if you are more interested in firearms in general is Paul Harrell, and I think he's a former US Marine and he's like a firearms instructor, and his videos are really educational, even though I have no reason to watch them in the UK and I can't, you know, have any of the guns he does videos on. I find them really interesting, especially some of them where he talks about, you know, good guns for beginners, and he explains different like firearms actions and things like that. I'm not going to show people my hometown because then people might be able to track me down. No, I don't have any medieval armours. I have, I said, like a couple of medieval reproduction weapons, but I don't have medieval armour, no. I wouldn't mind getting some, but again, it's the space it takes up and the price. I'd be far more sensible, you know, doing more sensible things with my money, to be honest. Yeah, I think the main thing is while you're aiming, just slowly keep increasing pressure on the trigger till you actually, you know, pull it, rather than, you know, doing that, because when you do that, you're obviously gonna cause the gun to jerk a bit more pulling it. But obviously if you're gently squeezing, eventually the pressure, if you're on target, will get high enough that the gun will discharge. No, I've never was in scouts or cadets or anything like that. What state are you in then, Sloosh Gaming? Because I don't actually know what state he's in. I think people might have told me before, but is it like Washington or something? Like Washington State in the Northwest? I'd say maybe I mean, obviously, it would be down to the parents' discretion or guardian's discretion for a 10-year-old. But I'd say probably some sort of air gun, because the power's not so great that, although you still have to treat it with respect and not do anything stupid with it, I think with an air gun the consequences are going to be less serious than some firearms. So while an air gun technically isn't a firearm, I think a break barrel air gun might be quite good at teaching proper firearms handling and, you know, all that sort of stuff. I've done a couple of videos where I shoot air rifles with gas masks on. Ah, okay, so he's from Oregon, is he? I did have a good one recently from a katana fanboy, where I did a video on the katana, and I said even though I like that katana, I was explaining some of the bad points on katanas, and, you know, like some of the myths with katanas where people think they're these magical swords that, you know, could cut through steel and all that sort of stuff. And somebody said to me, a katana doesn't need a good guard because the samurai was so skilled that nobody would ever, you know, be able to get close to them. So they didn't need a handguard on the sword. European swords had handguards because they were, like, worse fighters. And I saw a really good sparring video where a guy with a katana who is very skilled is fighting a guy with a saber who is very skilled. The guy with the saber won every time because he got the katana to use the hand and wrist with the sword, but the katana user couldn't get his because he had a handguard on the saber. So, you know, the Tetsuba or whatever it's called on the katana is just too small to be a practical handguard, and it won't protect somebody from getting you at a side strike. Yeah, I had a spud gun. In theory, I should still have one. When I say spud gun, I mean one of the ones you stick into a potato and then you can shoot a little bit of potato out, not like a spud cannon. Only good to play airsoft with a gas mask if you have a gas mask that's going to totally stand up to the impacts, not if you wear something like a GP5 that lens splinter and goes in your eye. That's obviously a very bad idea. No, I don't get fan mail because nobody has my address other than Weapon Collector. The problem is there's not a local forest big enough for me to go in. The local woods are really small and most of it's private property, so I wouldn't be able to just go out there. I mean, depending on how realistic it looks, you might get done for imitation firearm, I guess. I don't have an M9 knife. Is that the Beretta one? Like the one that's meant to be the companion for the pistol? Or is it a different one? Or is it like the M16 bayonet? Because I think there's American M9 bayonets, aren't there, as a name for them? It would depend, I guess, both on the rifle shooting them and the actual ballistics of the cartridge. So I assume you mean .50 BMG. I don't actually know between 338 and 50 BMG. Well, the problem is, like I said, I'm not the best channel to do that because I'm in the UK where I can't do proper videos on firearms. But, you know, never point them at people unless you intend to shoot them. Practice good range safety. You know, stuff like that. But even when I did a video explaining like things not to do with an air rifle, I started somebody saying I was giving people bad advice. You know, it's like one of those sort of idiots, I guess, that want to always be right on YouTube. But you know, oh, telling people to always aim the gun down range isn't a good piece of advice. Why are you doing that? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind actual Tiger Strike, but I've never seen any for sale. What do you mean, a revolver or semi-automatic pistol? I think for cool factor a revolver, but if I could have any pistol whatsoever, I'd like a SIG P226. Free M masks are fine, just make sure you get a proper free M one and not a Chinese copy of a free M mask. Well, I can't really make a firearms channel because, as I said, I'm in the UK. You can't really ask people in the UK to do sort of an American-style firearms channel because there's people who have done that and they've actually had their licenses revoked because the government doesn't like what they're doing. Well, okay, so talking about buying a tank, right? Firstly, I'm going to have to talk about in completely practical terms because I'm not going to be able to afford a tank and then afford insurance for the tank, the petrol costs or diesel costs for a tank and all that. But if we're assuming that money is not an object and I could somehow have one and run one, yes, I would love one. But, you know, in reality, having a hatchback is a lot more sensible than having a tank or an armoured car. M1911 out of those two. But I like the Browning High Power more than either of those. The Metro gas mask is the PPM88 or GP9. It has two names, basically. Yeah, you've made the live stream and I'm still going to be on for another 10 plus minutes, so there you go. T-3485 out of those and a Panzer IV, just because of the fact the Panzer IV, you know, by the end of the war is an outdated design. But I prefer the Sherman to both of those because the Sherman was like a good combination of survivability and mass producibility. Because the problem with a lot of the German tanks is, although they were very good as one-on-one tanks, they weren't logistically sound designs, you know, like in terms of fuel economy and how slow they were to produce. And T-34s were not very good on survivability, even though they were very good to mass produce. The Sherman was a very good mass-produced tank with, you know, slight better features than the T-34. The 6-colour desert looks fine. Again, my opinion with lots of camos is, if they are a good colour for the environment you're using them in, they're generally good. But obviously if you're not using them in an environment that's designed for that camo. Because with desert camos, you sometimes get some desert camos that look better in other deserts than others. Like if you compare like Arizona or the Mojave to somewhere like different places in Mexico to places in Africa or you know, like the Sahara and the Middle East, lots of those deserts end up being slightly different colour sands and everything than others. So some desert camos work in some deserts and not others. It's not even that simple. Yeah, isn't it also though because 7.62 by 25mm often has steel heads rather than being like copper or whatever, like copper jacketed, so having like a steel FMJ means it goes through armour a lot better as well. Apparently they did in World War II, yeah. But apparently it's because of the way pink, you know, reflects ambient light, it would reflect back quite yellow. Just a load of old books and some lighter fluid and some torches. Yeah, I've got the summer suit, the one that's in Partisan or SS Leto. I've got one of those that you just pull over your normal clothes. When you say armoured police, do you mean armed police? You have to be like a regular policeman for quite a while, I think. Well, I will say the standard one, UCP, Universal Camouflage Pattern, the one the US decided would be a good idea, because it looked good under night vision scopes, but they didn't bear in mind it didn't look good in person. So they made this bright grey camo that didn't really work anywhere except for maybe a quarry. Again, it's not completely terrible, but compared to most modern camos, it was one which they spent loads of money developing. They, you know, put it out for a few years and realised it didn't really work, and they had to quickly rush out multicam to kind of fix the mess. Favourite World War II gas mask would be the one that's like probably one of the optical masks from World War II. I promise I don't have I only have one US World War II mask, just simply because of the you know, difficulty in getting them in the UK. But the optical masks certainly look the coolest, but the best one would probably have been the one that was a precursor to the M9, just simply because of, you know, the practicality of it. Well, I think compared to most of the communist states, Yugoslavia was certainly one of the best ones, because Tito was nowhere near as bad as Stalin and a load of the other communist dictators. However, if we're going to say compare Yugoslavia to a lot of Western countries, then it probably wasn't very good. And obviously, when Yugoslavia collapsed, that was pretty horrible. I've done a couple of videos around museums before, but, you know, well, the problem is, that wall, as I've said probably in other streams, it can't support much weight because it's like plaster drywall stuff. It's basically a thin load of plaster drywall, there's a gap, and then there's thin plaster drywall on the other side for the next room along. So I can't put too much on there because it causes chunks of the wall to fall out. If I could do it, I'd do a board like Weapon Collector, but sadly I can't, so I'm probably not going to add much more, because I've got other swords and guns I could hang on there, but I don't trust the wall to actually support the weight of them. Bear in mind, my bed's there, I sleep under them. If that wall collapses, that will all come down on top of me when I'm in bed. Well, the laws changed over times on UK firearms, but it used to be they just welded the barrel and took out the firing pin, and then over time they added it so, you know, more bits couldn't move and more bits had to be removed or welded shut or whatever. No, I don't have any metal detectors. I thought about magnet fishing as well, but I've never got round to doing it. Well, yeah, having a wall is certainly better than not having a wall. You can look at other countries that, you know, had lots of problems with illegal immigration, and then they put up big fences, you know, border guards or walls, and surprise, surprise, the numbers of people entering illegally dropped down massively. Because from the standpoint of having a wall compared to not having a wall makes it harder to get over. I imagine there would have been Yugoslavian NBC suits, but I don't know what they actually are off the top of my head. Well, no, because say that sword falls, the most dangerous thing on there is the flail. Because if that fell down, blunt force trauma means it would actually do damage to me. But a sword in a scabbard isn't going to fall down and cut into you. Even if it falls down, I'm going to get hit by the scabbard. not hit by the sword. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream if you got on it. Oh, they did build Hadrian's Wall when the Romans were over here to keep the Scots out. But that's basically because the Romans couldn't conquer Scotland. They built a wall to try and, you know, make it an easy to defend border, essentially, rather than trying to risk sort of incursions into the Highlands or vice versa. That's cool. Do you know what model sword it is? Like a great sword or a long sword? Oh, I do listen to music, obviously. I don't sit in silence all the time, but I suppose what you're really asking is what genres do I like, and I like anything that sounds good. That sounds interesting. So are they designed to actually penetrate stuff, Peach, but they're just made out of plastic rather than steel, or like iron? Yeah, it's like a civil defence thing. It's like saying a lot of the Soviet bloc was actually very good in terms of civil defence. The UK used to have people paid to do civil defence. Then it was a volunteer-only thing, and now it's gone completely. Because, you know, the UK's like, ah, fuck you, you're gonna die. What genres of music? Like I said, I like anything that sounds good, but I quite like soundtracks. Obviously, that's more classical based. 80s style metal, prog rock, some electronic music, you know, like John Carpenter kind of thing, early industrial. You'd have to put an East German style thing on if you're wearing it with it. I guess that's what you're saying. German communist, that would be East Germany, wouldn't it? Oh, lots of the laws are very restrictive in the UK, if that's what you're on about. Okay, alright, yeah, you let me know, Mike, if you're going to do it or not do it. Because, like I said, if you let me know at whatever point, then I can watch a film or whatever if you're not going to be streaming anything. Yeah, I know Nightwish. I prefer the older Nightwish stuff, though. I don't know if they're still around, but you know, like when they did Planet Hell and that sort of generation stuff, Ghost Love Score, other things were sort of on that period of Nightwish, but you know what the one I mean if you know Nightwish. No, I've got NBC suits, but not hazmat suits. Hazmat suits require you to have like a positive pressure pump for them to work. Alright, cool. Hopefully you've got a proper 3M one though, and not like a Chinese clone, but even if it's a Chinese clone, it should work. Just do tests with it before you actually wear it in an industrial area, that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I know Slayer. You know, like Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, lots of those sort of bands. Well, I don't really know. I mean, I personally wouldn't dress up in old communist uniforms myself, but there you go. It depends how much it's melted, I guess, Rival. You could probably use rubber-based glues to glue it, but I normally live stream on Monday and Thursday. I just said earlier in the stream I was live streaming as an extra one today, just because I normally work Sunday, but this Sunday I'd booked off as holiday for a rehearsal, because I do pantomime and summer shows. So I needed to have this day off work for rehearsal, so as it was booked off and we had the rehearsal earlier, I'm nowhere near as tired as I would be on a normal Sunday, because I've not been working on a 9-hour shift. You know, I've only had a 4-hour rehearsal, so in comparison, you know. But yeah, I'll do a stream again tomorrow unless something comes up and I can't do a stream. And I'll stream Thursday as usual. No, I don't know that song, Peach. No, I've done Warhammer. I think you can see a Warhammer box there. Well, mostly Warhammer 40k. But that just got too expensive and I didn't have the time for it. But my highest point army for that was Necrons. And the main reason I like collecting Necrons is because they ended up being cheaper to collect because you didn't need to get that many models to actually have an effective army because they were so good, you know, per individual unit. Yeah, unless it's Chernobyl, obviously, because they exposed a lot of people to radiation through that, didn't they? So yeah. I like M16s aesthetically a lot. I have no problem with ARs, it's an accurate platform. But you can improve the AR design. America's had this thing for ages where they keep looking into replacements for the M16 series. They come up with guns which are a bit better and then they decide for cost reasons they're not actually going to put them into service. But there's some quite interesting armour-like style rifles out there. Like the LR300's a pretty interesting rifle. I haven't seen any accusations rival recently of me being a Soviet or Russian spy, but I'm sure if the UK government does something and I criticise them again, I'll be a Russian agent or a Putin shill for pointing that out. I'm pretty sure nukes are real, yes. You know, because of the fact several countries have developed them. There's a massive history of them being tested. There's areas that are still radioactive from the testing, like the Bikini Atoll, and some of the places sort of in Kazakhstan, where the Soviets tested their nuclear weapons. No, I've not listened to any of those bands, T55. No, I haven't seen a video of that, but I know some people have a weird pain tolerance to, like, tasers. And I suppose if you're wearing a thick enough, like, clothes, they're not going to actually shock you properly. I have seen a video as well from France where they spray CS gas at somebody, like in a mace kind of spray, like pepper spray. But obviously, it's not pepper spray, it's CS gas. And then they try and tase the guy and he sets on fire because how flammable CS is. You know, which is one of the reasons I say I really don't like CS gas. Well, at the moment the mace is well oiled, so I'm not going to get it all out and mess about with it. No, the Earth is a sphere. I'll just search taser into the news and see if there's a video. Is this Luton man shot by police after taser failed, or is it something else? Oh. Moment furious gym goer shrugs off 50,000 volt taser. I'll have a look at that later. I'm not going to play a video while I'm doing the stream, but right, yeah, I'll look at that video later on. I don't do reaction videos on this channel because I'm not some sort of meme clickbaity channel, to be honest. Yeah, that's a rapier down there. I'll get it out quickly, although I'll have to wipe it down again because annoyingly it's got a really cheap nasty scabbard on it, which leaves residue on the rapier every time it's pulled out and put back in. There you go, and there's the rapier. As you can see, it's really long. Because if I put it next to the Lee Enfield, you can see it's basically longer than a full-on bolt-action rifle. As I said, it gets this stupid kind of residue on it because the scabbard's got like leather on the inside, and then that leather disintegrates onto the sword. But yeah, because it's a rapier, it's very easy to thrust. Obviously you don't need much force to make the point of that go in. in the light with the backside of that rapier. But yeah, I'll have to wipe that down again. Hopefully at some point enough of the inside of the scabbard will have deteriorated that it won't keep wiping off onto the rapier. That's alright. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. I'll be on a couple more minutes, I think, before I go off. And no, I don't own a tank, sadly. Yeah, I know what a Martini Henry rifle is. It's the single-action British rifle around time of Zulu War. Okay, yeah, we'll see. That'll be interesting, Mike. We'll see if you get a load more people on. At least if you've told me it's 10 PM, so I won't watch a film now because I won't have time to watch a full one. Technically in the UK you can still legally own Martini Henrys because they don't class them as a rifle due to the age of them, if you get an antique one. Yeah, Soma's very good if you like good story driven games. Alright, see you, Richard. In the UK, it is currently 8 minutes past 9. Well, at the moment, I bought a year's subscription to Shudder, which is only like 38 quid if anybody's interested, because it's a very good streaming service for the price, so I'd have watched a film on there. Maybe Hideo Nakata's Dark Water, if I'm pronouncing that right, or maybe Noroi the Curse. I've got a few other things on there I've got ready to watch as well, but I'd probably watch one of those. Oh, that's because there's different time zones, isn't there? You know, all of Earth isn't on one time zone. The UK is quite a lot further east than the US. There's a big thing called the Atlantic between the US and the UK. No, I've never really watched the anime, to be honest. I find space stuff really interesting, but I'm not an expert on it, so I'm not going to make myself sound like an idiot by trying to talk loads about it. You know, a lot of the sciencey things with it, space travel goes over my head, even if I think it's really cool that we can make rockets and, you know, land stuff on the moon and everything. My favourite gun's that one there. Favourite aftershave, I really like Old Spice, as much as that's probably uncool to say, but I prefer those like retro, horrible 70s splash-on ones like Brute and Old Spice, not, you know, like modern, expensive celebrity name designer ones. The L1A1 SLR is a variant of the FN FAL, yes. Anyway, I'll probably finish the stream off around here because I've not seen any good new questions. Yeah, I'm just quickly checking in case I've missed any. Favourite tanks are T72 series because late model T72s are really good tanks and they were quite mass producible. Because generally, like I said before, you've got both a logistics sort of thing to making it. With military equipment, so as much as you can have some stuff which is really, really good on one-for-one kind of engagements, if that you can only produce like one of those to every 10 of a certain tank an enemy can make, or 20 or 30, they're not very good in, you know, hindsight. The great thing with the T72 series is how mass producible they were and how they could be built using quite primitive, like, tank making technology, if that makes sense. Well, the Lee Enfield up there, although that's not from World War I, that one, I think it was made in 1939, that design is a World War I design. So technically, yeah, you could say that's a World War I gun, I guess, if you wanted to. T-80s had the awful engine, though. They had that turbine engine in the T-80s. The Russians, for obvious reasons, decided not to use that engine again after the T80. T72 uses a standard sort of diesel engine. That's why it's a more sensible engine. I used to play War Thunder. I've not played it in ages though. Yugoslavia is probably the most overpowered faction in Wargame Red Dragon, so I do like having a Yugoslavian deck. For Blue 4, maybe West Germany, because West Germany gets loads of good tanks. Britain's also pretty good if you're making an armoured deck. G36 is meant to be supposedly quite good. I've heard that there's a couple of bits in it that, you know, would have been better if they made them out of metal, not polymer. But for the most part, G36 is meant to be a very good rifle. It certainly came out a lot better than a lot of the other NATO 5.56 rifles, like FAMAS's and L85s. My favourite horror film, and this will be the last thing I'm answering, is Della Morte dell'Amore, or Cemetery Man, which is a 1994 sort of Italian dark comedy horror film, directed by Michael Soavi, or Michael Soavi, not sure how his name's pronounced exactly. But if you've not seen Della Morte dell'Amore or Cemetery Man, that is definitely worth watching. Anyway. Okay, I'm going to answer that last thing. I'm going to answer my favourite unit in Stronghold. Pack Fodder. The Pikemen, who's actually a halberdier, but Pikemen are the best units in Stronghold because of how mass-producible they are and how versatile they are. Anyway, that will be all the questions I'm answering on today's stream. As I said, I'll be streaming tomorrow, probably at a similar time. Thanks for watching. See ya.